Hello everyone, I'm Janine Kakmar with PHTV Channel 4 Palos Heights, and we're back with our show all about books. As you know, on the show we talk about books and writing and authors, and we get to visit with a special guest. And today I'm excited to have Tina Rosala. She's the head of the Youth and Teen Services at the Palos Heights Library. We work together, but we also, Tina is a little bit new here at the library, so I'm actually excited to have you on the show because we've talked about so many other different types of books, fiction, nonfiction, but they've all been for adults, for grown-ups. So I'm excited to hear about some kids' books you want to talk about, and maybe some trends in reading and that type of thing. And a little bit more about yourself, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Good. But before we get to visit with our guests, we're going to talk about the new releases coming out in May. Now, again, we aren't able to talk about every new release, but we will talk about some of the ones getting a lot of attention and some of the New York Times bestsellers coming out. So to start with, we're going to talk about the first book we have is Love and Ruin by Paula McLain. Now this author is known for writing about the lives of women from history. In her first book, she wrote about, in The Paris Wife, her first book, she wrote about Hadley, which was Ernest Hemingway's first wife, and their early time in Paris. Her second book, Circling the Sun, she wrote about Beryl Markham, who, among many other things, she was the first aviator to fly across the Atlantic from east to west. And in her third book, Love and Ruin, which is coming out this month, she goes back to Hemingway's wives, to the third wife, Martha Gellhorn. She was known as a writer and actually one of the most intrepid war correspondents of her time. She and Ernest Hemingway met when they were in Spain covering the Civil War, and that's when their affair began. They eventually marry after Hemingway got to divorce his second wife, Pauline Pfeiffer. And things went fine for a couple years until Hemingway's jealousy and insecurities and stuff started to poison their happiness, and Gellhorn was forced to choose between her career as a writer and a war correspondent or as a dutiful wife to Hemingway. And I think we all know how that ended up because she is actually only one of his wives to leave him, actually.
Oh.
You just didn't know that. But the author, Paula McLain, she's a New York Times bestselling author. She is known for her ability to pace a story, make it very exciting. And, she just can breathe life into these characters that have lived in the past so that they're very real to us in the present. Our next title for a new release in May is Two Steps Forward by the best-selling author of The Rosie Project, one of the books we've talked about on the show, Graham Simpson, and he's co-writing this one with his wife, Anne Buist. Now, this story takes place on the Camino de Santiago, which was a centuries-old pilgrimage route where thousands of people journey each year to walk the trail. And in the book, two people meet. Zoe, who is from California, an artist from California, and she's reeling from the sudden death of her husband. And then there's Martin, who is a British chap who is recovering from a nasty divorce. And they meet each other there, and they both learn about taking chances and learning to love again. And they also learn that the most important journey isn't measured in miles, but in the strength and love found along the way. And you fans of the Rosie Project, you'll know that you'll recognize his charming, funny, smart style of writing that he showed in his first two books, and is back in this book too. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. Our third book is Warlight by Michael Ondaatje, who is the mega award-winning author. He's written The English Patient and Aniel's Ghost. He's just a treasure of an author, and he's back with his new novel it's a dramatic story set in World War II, where the grown Nathaniel, who's working for the British intelligence, looks back on the events of 1945 when he, as a 14-year-old young boy, along with his sister, were suddenly left by his parents in the company of two adults who they thought might have been criminals. So what he does in the book is to try to discover what happened in those years. What was the secrets of his mother, who she was, what her actions were, her bravery, the betrayals that happened. And he did, trying to understand all he didn't know about that time period. And This book is very much like many of his other award-winning books, written with beautiful language and poetic imagery, just from an incredible writer, one of the most incredible writers of our time, actually. Our fourth new release is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. Now, this author showed her suspense writing skills in her debut novel, In a Dark, Dark Wood, when that came out a couple years ago. It is a great book. If you have not seen that, if you've not read that book, read it. And they are going to make that into a movie too. But she's also displayed her talent, that suspense writing talent, in her second book, The Woman in Cabin 10, and The Lying Game. And many people attribute her skills to that of like Agatha Christie, a modern day Agatha Christie. And in her new book, The Death of Mrs. Westaway, it's a gothic, twisted thriller featuring Harriet, or Hell, Westaway, who's a tarot card reader who's hard up on her luck. And she receives this mysterious letter that bequeaths a substantial inheritance, right? And she realizes this letter was sent to the wrong person, but she decides she's going to use her tarot card reading skills to still claim the inheritance anyways. So when she arrives to the crumbling family estate in Cornwall, doesn't that sound very gothic? Mm-hmm. She realizes it's not all as what it seems, and she's starting to believe that this letter she received is not a mistake at all. So if you are in the mood for a creepy gothic family drama, then this definitely is the book for you. And you know, I mentioned her other titles. All her titles are standalone. They are not a series, so you can pick up any one of her books and read it while you're waiting for this new one to come out. And our fifth book, our final feature, is a nonfiction book titled Milk by Mark Kurlansky. Now, this author is known for writing about a single subject and writing a lot about it. He wrote a book about salt, which was about that thick, which I learned is the only rock that we eat. And his other book, Cod, he wrote a book this thick on cod. Paper was one of his just recent books. He wrote, it was about this thick, all about paper. And in his new book, Milk, he does the same thing. He writes about, it's just a fascinating cultural, economic, and culinary story of milk and all things dairy. The author is a James Beard Award-winning writer, and he uses his skill about writing about food, and he explores with a thorough study of milk. It's a quote, one of the most argued over foods in history. This book was written in 3 parts. It gives you a history, it gives you health and safety issues, and it also the contemporary world tour of milk production. Sounds a little bit boring, but he covers numerous civilizations, locations over thousands of years, and it shows how various cultures have produced, cooked, consumed, and thought about milk. Readers will learn about the rise and fall of this popularity of this beverage over the years, and there's even 126 recipes, old recipes, ancient recipes, and contemporary recipes of milk. So you might even learn something and taste something fascinating. But this is one of those books where each chapter you have one of those, oh my gosh, I didn't know that fact, about something you learn. And it really is will keep readers engaged and entertained by milk. Who knows? Who would have figured? So those are some of our featured books coming out in May, and some of our New York Times bestsellers. These are by the authors that you are very familiar with. Many of them have an ongoing series. Coming out in May, we have Dinar Koontz coming out with a new one, The Crooked Staircase. Amanda Quick has The Other Lady Vanishes. Stephen King has a new one. Yes, he's still writing books. It's called The Outsider. Nora Roberts, Shelter in Place. Clive Cussler is out with his new, the next in his Sam and Remy Fargo series titled Grey Ghost. And Rita Mae Brown is out with a new book with her co-author. Her cat, Sneaky Pie Brown, this is how she really does this, is out with the new Mrs. Murphy series titled Probable Claws. That's C-L-A-W-S. Yes, very cutesy with the cat reference. And Ellen Hildebrand, many of you love her. She's out with her new book, The Perfect Couple. And James Patterson is out with a new co-author this month, President Bill Clinton. And James Patterson have teamed up to write a book, The President is Missing. So we'll have to stay tuned and read that one. So those are the features. Those are some of the New York Times bestsellers. And now we have a chance to visit with our special guest, Tina Ruzala. So Tina, thanks for being here again. I know this is a busy time of year at the library for all the youth. You're planning summer reading coming up.
Right.
You're doing a lot of school visits now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to be more in the swing near the end of May. We're going to be doing more of those.
Right. So I know, Tina, you've been at the Palos Heights Library for how long?
It was just 6 months.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Right before Christmas. That's when you came.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So how did you get to this part of your journey? How did you start writing? Working in the library, and especially with youth.
Well, at a young age, like in high school, I knew that I wanted to work with children. At Macaulay, they had a little school program where high school seniors are actually able to teach preschool to kids.
Oh, neat.
And from then on, I was just like, oh, I need to work with kids. And I kind of combined my love of books and helping kids and doing programs into librarianship, and that's how I became a youth librarian.
It's cute. You were telling me a story yesterday a little bit about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, and I had to have been like in 5th grade, I opened up my own library.
In your house?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I would loan out my books to like my friends in school or my sister, and I was very strict on when I wanted my books back, and I would give them 3 days. You need to finish this book in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
If you're not done in 3 days, then you need to give me 50 cents per day each time it's late.
Oh, wow.
My sister, she would rush to be trying to finish these books, and then I remember there was one time that she didn't meet the deadline, and she paid me like $1 in pennies. So yeah, and my parents are very upset when they found out. But
sorry, Mom, she can't do it in chores today. She has to finish reading a book, or she's going to owe me lots of money.
no, absolutely. But yeah.
So that's really how it started then, huh? No.
Yeah, like 5th grade.
Yeah, right. Well, like I said earlier, I'm excited to have you on because we really haven't touched on any children's books, really. I mean, we've had some people talk about some of the books in the past, but we're both big readers, been reading forever, and I know when I was young, the books that I read and that I really liked when I was little are not what kids are reading today. What are some of the trends that you see in reading today?
Some of the things that I know that the children really enjoy are books that either make them laugh out loud and they're funny, or books where they are interacting with the reader.
Such as, can you give me an example of the first one?
So, laugh out loud funny, any of the Mo Willems books.
Okay.
Simple text, and
is that the Pigeon
the
on a
Elephant
Bus?
and Piggy, Pigeon on a Bus, and it doesn't have a lot of text. It's not text heavy, but it's just constantly making you laugh. And an example of where...
And that's for what age?
Really?
All ages?
All ages, I want to say. I enjoy those books, but they're also simple enough where emerging readers can sit down and practice their reading skills with those books as well. An example of a book that interacts with the kids is The Book with No Pictures. And that book has no pictures, and it's just funny text and made up words, and the kids love this book, even though they're not looking at anything.
I don't think I've heard of this one.
No, and it's just a plain white cover too, and that's something that was constantly just flying off the shelves, and teachers everywhere were just like, I need this book, like my kids, they want me to read it. And it just gets the reader to say funny different things. Like made up words, like oobly gloop or something.
And they just love that, huh? That's interesting, because you would think that when we're such, everything is on tablets, they're all connected now, kids, and so much of it is image heavy, with pictures and or watching videos. But you're saying a book without any pictures is really popular.
Right.
Who would have thunk?
No.
It's interesting. Okay, what about for the older ages?
For the older ages, I want to say the juvenile age group, so the chapter books. It's a lot of, there's always going to be historical fiction, and there's all and that's something that age group I'm finding is very interested in. So
what age group would you say?
I I would say like the 4th through 6th grade.
Okay.
So The War That Saved My Life and The War I Finally Won. Those type of books. Also Jennifer Nielsen, who is the author of the Ascendance trilogy.
The which trilogy?
Ascendance trilogy.
Okay, I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
It's mysteries. It's a lot of twists and turns. But her book, The Night Divided, also recently just won an award too, and that is a historical fiction-based book, and it's fast-paced and lots of action.
And I think it's kind of interesting, because kids that are in school, they have to take their social studies or history classes, and learning can be kind of boring or rote, but when they look at history through, like even as an adult, in a historical fiction book, you really can learn so much about or see a historical event through different eyes and maybe get a different appreciation for it. So I'm wondering if they're popular because of that,
No, it could be. And of course, another popular type of genre, I guess it's kind of like made its own, is Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Dork Diaries, where there's like stick figure pictures, and it looks like someone just wrote in a journal, and those are always gonna.
I remember that from when my kids were young. The first one you said, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yes.
Oh my God, I laughed out loud when we read those to my kids. They're just hilarious. And they made movies out of that too, right?
Yes, and there's a new one coming out in October again.
Oh boy.
So, yep.
That's funny.
It's always going to come out. For young adult, it's something that's popular right now is, like you described, dark books, dark fantasy books, especially.
Is the dystopia thing still really big?
Yes.
We had, the Hunger Games, we've had the Maze Runner, I know there's some other things, but that's still Veronica Roth's books. Which one are those? Just, it's you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but so it's a dystopian societies that's still really
Yes.
big.
Yeah. And also something that I found interesting was Marie Lu. She came out with Warcross, and that is all a virtual reality based book.
Oh wow.
And that kind of, I guess, ties into Ready Player One.
I was just going to say, it sounds like Ready Player One.
Yes, they're video games, and they're getting to different levels and things. So that might be something that could be emerging too, something different.
It's funny because the young adult books, those some of them really deal with very mature material. I mean, and they cross over to being books for adults as well. Like I think of like The Book Thief. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Oh,
even the graphic novel Mouse, those are, or Persepolis. Those are two graphic novels that, look like they were for kids, but they're very much about events that happen in history and are approached in a different way. So, there's a couple of the young adults that, they deal with things that adults have to deal with, but they seem to really relate to that as well.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that I do like about the young adult books, and that's actually a genre that I more gravitate to if I'm reading for pleasure. I like them because they are constantly, I think, pushing the boundaries, and they're making you think in different ways that I normally wouldn't think. And also, there's a dark fantasy type of genre out there too, like The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern.
I read that one. Yeah,
and that's one of those crossovers that can also be young
even
adult
The Magicians.
and adult.
Yeah, The Magicians.
The Magicians
which they made
by
a
Lev Grossman.
TV series.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's just something, and that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of 20s and 30s, they tend to like young adult books as well.
Like Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. That's another one I think of. But that age level. You talk about the Harry Potter books. Okay.
Yes.
That's when I'm thinking when you talk about an audience that. Okay, how long ago has this been? Has it been 20 years?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I think the 20 years for the first book was, I think, last year, or maybe it was this year. It's very recent. But for 20 years, we have kids that were growing up on Harry Potter, and now they're in their 30s, 20s, and 30s, and they still very much are into anything related to Harry Potter. I mean, it's like it's something that they don't really kind of outgrow. Of course, her series is an incredible series, and it has so many levels that you could relate to it as a child or as an adult. You read it again as an adult, and it means something different to you. But that's just incredible storytelling, incredible writing.
Oh yes, I love Harry Potter.
Yeah, and I know we do. You're doing a program. When is that coming up with the Harry Potter band? What is that?
We actually are having a Harry Potter rock band during our teen lock-in. That's going to be on July 27th.
Yeah, that is a huge. This band is huge. They're hugely popular,
Yes.
right?
They've toured in Europe and they've gone to different Harry Potter cons, so like the Leaky Cauldron, the Leaky Con, and they've been everywhere, and they travel to different states performing this music, and
so you're going to have them at the library.
Yes.
That's a big deal. So for just for the teens, though, correct?
just for the teens.
Right.
Sorry.
So listen up, teens. You better make a date here. Plan that date. Yeah. So what did you bring with us today to show us today?
So for a picture book, I know that there's a lot of books out there, and it was very hard for me to just pick one. So I decided to pick one that is new, and it made me laugh out loud when I started reading it. So it's called The Big Bed. It's by Bunmi Laditon. And it starts off, as a reader, I was thinking, okay, well, this girl, she is too big to be sleeping in mom and dad's bed, and it's going to be a book about trying to get her to sleep in her own bed. And that was not the case.
Oh, really?
Instead, this girl, she comes to her father and she says, listen, Dad, we need to have a talk. You need to sit down and let me explain. We just need to have a very serious conversation. And I love getting piggyback rides from you, and I love playing games with you, but at nighttime, you need to me and Mom, we need to have our time together. And I appreciate you trying to give us more room on the bed, but this really isn't working out. And
so she's kicking him out?
So she's pretty much kicking him out. And she said, you know what, you have your own mom. I believe it's Grandma. And if you need to cuddle with somebody, you can go to her, but leave me and my mom have our mom time. And it just made me laugh out loud because it took a direction that I didn't think that the author was going for.
Right.
And I just really enjoyed that book. I'm not going to ruin the ending for you. But she also comes up with a solution to make both parties happy. And
well, I'm going to have to read that book now.
It's really funny. I enjoyed it.
So that's obviously for the younger kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Or adults, who knows. Yeah.
And for the middle school age, so kids that are reading chapter books, I brought Masterminds by Gordon Corman.
Okay.
And
that's a name that's been around for a while, hasn't it?
And this is more mystery sci-fi, and it's about 5 kids, and they are growing up in this town. It's called Serenity, and they value honesty and integrity above everything. And the kids, little things are coming out where they're seeing we're living in a bubble. Like, this isn't the real world. One kid hacked the internet because they weren't getting the same information that everyone else gets on the internet for school assignments and things.
Interesting.
And they were riding their bikes to the edge of town, and all of a sudden these helicopters came out, and the kids are like, whoa, what is going on? Why do you need to keep us? Like, how come we can't keep riding our bike? Why do we want to get out of this town? And they're feeling, like they're living in a bubble, and later the kids make different discoveries, and they come to find out that there's something going on in the town that is actually connected to world's criminal masterminds. And they can't trust anyone. They can't even trust their parents.
Wow.
And that's something that these kids, they end up relying on each other and really only trusting each other. But when you can't trust a grown-up, that...
Oh my God! This kind of as you speak about this book, I'm thinking of like 5 other books or movies that remind me, like the Stranger Things, the series on Netflix, featuring the kids, and something along that line.
No, so it's a great book. It's high suspense, and it is the first of 3.
how long old is that book? How long has it been around for a while?
It's been around, I want to say, for, I'm going to check.
Just right on the top.
Well, we've had it since 2015.
Oh,
but
okay. Well, I was just wondering if it was a new book or...
2015, yeah.
Oh.
So it's fairly new.
Right, and then it's the first in in a series of how many?
Of 3.
Okay. All right, that seems to be the magic number.
Yeah.
No, it depends. Depends what author you're talking about. Because I just saw your last book, the last book you're talking about.
Yes. So
is that a series as well?
this is the first one. The second one actually comes out at the end of this month.
Wow.
So this is Caraval. It's by Stephanie Garber. And this is one of those dark, it reminded me of Night Circus when I was reading it.
Okay.
And it also reminded me of kind of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in a way too, because basically there's this Caraval theater performance.
And this is for older. These are the
young adult.
Okay.
And the main character, Scarlett, ever since she was little, she was always writing to the creator of Caraval saying, I would appreciate a ticket because you can only come to attend this performance if the creator sends you a ticket and invites you to attend. And it only happens once a year. And she started writing to him when she was young, and then the creator decided he was going to stop doing these performances. Well, fast forward a bit, and now Scarlett is older. She's a teenager. And all of a sudden, she gets this ticket in the mail. And she comes from a home where it's just her sister, and her father, who is not nice at all. He's very strict disciplinarian, and he has promised Scarlett's hand in marriage to somebody. So she's betrothed.
Oh boy.
And her sister convinces her, hey, we need to get off this island. Let's go to Caraval. Let's attend this. And they get over there, and it's not what Scarlett thought it would be. It's very fast-paced. As a reader, I'm constantly just trying to figure out characters and see where, like, where the mystery is and try and solve it before the character does. And in this book, I couldn't do that. Every chapter was something different, and I would fall for things every time when I was reading it. And it got to a point where I ended up finishing the book in a matter of like 2 days.
Oh boy.
And I just couldn't put it down. So I'm very excited for the next book. It's called Legendary, to come out at the end of this month.
Oh wow. So is that what am I thinking of a Night Circus when the circus just pops up like that? Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking, did I read this book and I don't remember it?
No, and the tagline at the top is, remember, it's only a game, but you feel like it's not.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's a constant page turner.
Yeah, and I'm listening to a book that one of my daughters had told me I need to read, and it's a 3-part series, and it's one of those books that, you know, is it a young adult or is it an adult? But it's a fantasy book, Darker Shade of Magic by Schwab. If you've read that.
No, I
Schwab.
haven't.
Oh my gosh. And I'm on the second book now. I got hooked on the first one, and it's like, they just do a great job of, first of all, creating a new world.
Yes.
Make it believable. I mean, that's what J.K. Rowling did, with the Harry Potter books. She created this whole world with characters that we completely believe. We can believe in, what are those, the horses that are skeletal?
Yes.
Any of those characters. Or the game, what's the Quidditch, that's the whole thing she just completely made up, But when authors can do that, then they can create a whole new world and make it completely believable and exciting, and that you want to be a part of it. That's just, to me, is an incredible talent. And I think a lot of young adult authors are very good at that. Susan Collins in Hunger Games. I mean, that's...
Yes, just drawing you into their world and making you...
And we relate to the ideas or principles of things. I mean, those are universal. Some things are very universal, so it doesn't matter what world you're in, we can relate to them, So it's very fun. Well, thanks for telling us about those books. Now, I know summer reading is coming up at the library, so we're filming this for May, but June 4th is when sign up is for the kids and adults, actually. But so you want to tell us a little bit about summer reading and what the kids, parents can expect?
Well, our theme this year is Reading Takes You Everywhere, and every week we're going to be diving into a different place tied to a book. So one week we're going to Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, another week we're going to Oasis from Ready Player One.
Speaking of new worlds, right?
Yes, I know. It's a great tie-in. And so each week it's going to be something different. It's going to be something fresh. The children's department is going to look like something like it didn't look like last week.
Very good. Oh, and
It's
each week is
constantly
going to be
changing
changed.
each
Oh my
week.
God, that's a lot of work.
I know. So we're
Someone's
doing
gonna be
a lot
busy.
right now. Yes. And sign up starts June 4th, and
So each week when they come in, they're going to see something different.
yes.
I want to go.
There's going to be like a different craft at the craft table every week. There's going to be a different desk activity going on every week. Just different things to do, a different field, different programmings.
Really neat. Well, I can't wait to see how that works.
Thanks.
Well, Tina, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you all for joining us again. We look forward to seeing you next time.